you for coming this wonderful day. The nice weather here in Cordova. Today we'll be talking about tsunami hazards in the city and what different groups are trying to mitigate them. I am Dmitry Nikolsky from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I work at Alaska Earthquake Center, and there are other people involved. So there are different organizations. NOAA, the National Weather Service, is providing funds for university and the geological and geophysical survey to conduct. And the Geological Geophysical Survey is also publishing agency for our maps and reports. And also there is a Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, James Benchabel and Curtis at the back of the room. So we're working as a team with different communities in Alaska and to develop tsunami inundation maps, right? Guidance how to boats and vessels during a tsunami, and also final product is education public and about the products, and also successful evacuation is the key. So in this talk, I will be giving a general overview of a program, tsunami inundation maps for Cordova, the small updates that we have developed last year. Also, some overview of a pedestrian travel time to safety, how quickly people can walk out of the hazard zone to the away from hazard zone. And those are still flux, and Ezra can give more information about them. Finally, I'll be talking about maritime preparedness and guidance to small boats and captains. So please feel free to ask me any questions. So more questions, the better. I'm here to present the results, but some results are not in their final form, I would say, and they would require some feedback. Everyone. So I'm living in Fairbanks, cubicle. So we develop maps. Sometimes those maps need a review. So I came here in 2018 to present those maps. Then the header said, how about this area, 6-mile subdivision close to the airport? So we extended mapping to this. With some other questions or concerns, please voice them, and we will follow up with them, address them. So I want to start with the saying, sooner or later tsunamis will every coast is the fact. Tsunamis impact different parts of the shoreline, but they will be here before Cordova experienced it. Next one, I don't know when. The tsunami hazards in Alaska, it's close to our shore. Here you can see a map of a coastline. Red dots are showing locations for cities, communities in our state. And those shaded areas, those are earthquakes which happened in the 20th century. Big earthquakes, they started in 1938 close to Perryville and Sandpoint. After that, it was an earthquake close to Gold Bay, King Cove area. It was that Cape Cod lighthouse was big run-up, Cape Scotch, and then it was 1957 earthquake which ruptured from Ecotan from a Dutch harbor all the way to Aden. So one of the longest earthquakes in history. Then was a big one, 1964. That earthquake was going on for 5 minutes, rumbling and quaking was 5 minutes. And there are some records how dishwashers blades are rumbling. So, judging on this noise of rumbling, people can say how strong the shaking is. And because of the earthquakes are really close to our homes, we have not only in the state of Alaska, but also on the Pacific West Coast of Alaska. States of Washington, Oregon, California, they formed a program in about 1996. The program was called National Tsunami Hazard Mitigation Program. Different states participate in this endeavor. And originally there were 5 states, western states and the state of Hawaii, then other states, East Coast, and territories, started to participate. So what we do, so we have 3 partners, so University of Alaska Fairbanks, and so we are doing numerical modeling and writing reports. Alaska Division of Geological and Physical Survey, verifying our tsunami sources and the agency. Looking at that earthquake is plausible, it satisfies some geological constraints. Then once we develop a scenario, we do some modeling. Finally, we do outreach, what I'm doing right now. We look what the community is doing, if we need to do more, if we have other concerns. Then we repeat the cycle throughout. So 1996 when the program started, and the first report in Alaska was 1998 for Kodiak Island, Kodiak City. And then and we're doing those reports since then. Then 2014 we started to do modeling reports for smaller communities, started to develop other products with maritime preparedness guides and pedestrian travel time maps. Basically, pedestrian travel time maps, I will be talking about them later. And the subsidence maps, those basically maps during an earthquake, land can drop off and be permanently flooded after because land just drops down. And we finally do updates and revisions. And this is my second visit here. And this is update and revision of the existing map. I want to tell that not much changed in the downtown. But we did expand mapping to the airport area. So let's start with history. So this is a Rupture area of 1964 earthquake in Alaska. So this area in red, it's which went up, and this is the area which is circled by blue. This is where it went down. And the red star is where the epicenter used to be. Then from epicenter, the earthquake ruptured west along this line, about 5 kilometers per second, or about 3 miles per second. That's how quickly the earthquake propagated. And Cordova is located right here, close to the Copper River Delta. During the earthquake, some areas went down, some areas went up. So Cordova went up about 2 to 3 meters, about 6 to 10 feet up. That resulted that big boats cannot get to the shore. So, and the harbor had to be dredged, had some uplift. So this area used to be the bottom, became uplift. More part part of the land. But in Portage, it was a different story. The land actually sank down, resulted that some areas were permanently flooded. And people did lots of digging in the ground. That's what geologists like to do. They looked for different traces. How well this pattern of uplift and subsidence was persistent across different earthquakes. And so Cordova, Copper River Delta is number 18, so it is here. All these dots, that's where the geological records of previous earthquakes was covered. And if you go down this road to the airport and a little beyond, and you can see this big river, and you can hike on the shore, and you'll see these logs here. So they're buried by silt, and you can see also some other layers of peat. What is telling us that the Copper River Delta during the earthquake, it's uplifting during the earthquake, and then it's gradually sinking. So this peat layer is getting buried by the sediment. And this cycle repeats. The new sediment by the Copper River Delta is coming during sinking generally, but then during an earthquake, it's getting uplifted. New organic can start to grow, and then buried by sediment. So what the geological records are telling us that the Copper River is usually uplifting. So I would say 9 out of 10 times it's uplift, but it might be sinking a little bit, but usually it's not the case. So this is what we used into account while developing models. This is blue, it is an earthquake model. So this area of subsidence. Cordova is right here, and the red it's uplift. So this is a model of a Tahoku earthquake. So we all watched what the earthquake tsunami has done to Japan. It was a big moment for the tsunami community, because nobody expected so much leap between the tectonic plates at that moment. It was a very big slip, about 65 meters, about 200 feet. And they slipped close to the trench. So what we did in this study, we took the signs from a Tahoku, and we transplanted that to geological reality of Prince William Sound, assuming that there is no subsidence, as it was in Tahoku. Just the subsidence here in Cordova cities is minimal. So it's a low probability event, but we don't know the probability data, so we don't know that. But geologically, it is possible that this earthquake can occur. And another earthquake here on the right side, this is an earthquake in which the Copper River Delta, so it is in this here shown by a green circle, it's uplifting. And it's very similar to an earthquake in 1964 in the Prince William Sound. So the Prince William Sound is going up, but the hinge line is moving a little bit to the north. So these are two worst-case scenarios. So on the left, it is worst-case scenario for the airport area, and on the right, it's worst-case scenario for the downtown, Orca Inlet. So it's what we discovered after considering about maybe 15 or 12 different tsunami source scenarios for the region. Historical and also lessons learned from Atahoku. And what we see is that the first wave on the lower plots you can see the height of a tsunami. Tsunami is not a single event, so not a wave comes in and then it just goes out. So tsunami is an event in which we might have multiple waves, and it is coming, then it is receding. And, the first wave might be coming in as soon as 30 minutes after the rupture. The activity might be going on for 8, 12 hours. In 1964, tsunami occurred on a low tide. There was no flooding in the first hours of a tsunami, but the flooding in 1964 occurred about 10 hours later, when the tide was high and the tsunami was still going on back and forth between Ork and Let and Prince. That's when flooding in the downtown happened, about 10 hours after. So that's why it is really challenging for the emergency management to be vigilant. They don't go down because the wave might be coming. Don't go down because you have to have time to go back up. So, besides tectonic tsunamis, there are a few offenders in the area. They are local landslides. So the local landslide potentially can be at the head of the Ork Inlet. There is a big river bringing sediments. Those sediments are unconsolidated. There is it's basically like a shelf, building a shelf, and then when the ocean dropping, it's deep, so it's a big slope, steep slope. And when the shaking happens, the sediment can just collapse and go down the ocean bottom. Luckily, we have very shallow areas here. It's, luckily for tsunami, I guess, so, that it cannot propagate through these very shallow areas without breaking. So if a tsunami happens, if this piece of this break happens, we have a barrier. So the wave is probably not going to go into Cordova and have a devastating effect. Definitely not go to the shore, but still, there is a point of concern for people who are boating here to be aware that this can collapse. Another area of concern is definitely on the Continental Slope. There are some big circular shapes. The people estimated that there were massive landslides. I have no idea what's happening on the Continental Slope in Alaska. There's not much data whatsoever. There's more data on the east coast of the United States. They mapped it very well. They know the sediments. They know everything, but not much data on Alaska. We want to end landslide hazard on Continental Slope. Needs to be a lot basic research to constrain the size and volume. Any questions? So as we modeled tsunami height in the Cordova harbor, and the maximum tsunami height is about 6 meters, or about 20 feet. What the model is telling us. The wave will start arriving about 30 minutes after the first breaking. The maximum can be about 1 hour to 1 hour and a half. So that's and then there will be additional waves going in a channel, but definitely not safe to go back. low-lying areas. And we didn't model the tide. We modeled everything on high tide. So also on high tide. On a low tide, you have to add the tide here. So on a low tide, it will go down. So for example, this 7-hour peak here. So if it's on a low tide, it will go down. So, but if it is on a high tide, it will go up. So that the tide and tsunami can interact. So it is a challenge to model tsunami with a tide here. Yes. Right. So yeah. So I would give. We can get back to the modeling tides and tsunami area. Maybe yeah. This is a worst case. So we can go back to the modeling tides and tsunamis maybe in the next update for understanding tide. But tide is definitely was major player in 1964. It will be a major player. So in the 2015 report, we produced the inundation line, which is yellow here. And that line was based on the elevation model, which was from a satellite, from a shuttle, Columbia shuttle radar. The elevation model had a resolution of about 15 meters. The vertical errors were large, but it was a global product available at that time. In 2019, I think Heather directed us to LiDAR, which was flown here about maybe 3 years ago, which covered the town, and also the LiDAR in a 6-mile subdivision. Also, the state, the United States Geological Survey, they flew IFSAR radar for the entire state. It was a much better quality data available, became available to us. So that's why we decided, okay, let's do remodeling. And the same sources, tsunami sources as in the previous report, same sources like this report. Only thing changed only the elevation model. And in the previous elevation model, these areas were rather high. So tsunami couldn't reach in a numerical model into these areas. Now, because we have better data, elevation data, we can resolve those narrow areas. We can see that the tsunami can indeed reach into parts. So main difference is here, and the main difference in this area. We also, because of this new additional data, we modeled tsunami along the road to the airport. So airport is right here. This line. The 6-mile subdivision is corner. And this is a low-lying area. And if it's a 20-foot tsunami coming, then this is a 20-foot tsunami flooded. It's also a dynamic area. There's lots of vegetation growing, lots of erosional features. And this is what the numerical model is telling us. Of course, there are some uncertainties still to the elevation model. and to see how well the vegetation can provide friction to a tsunami. So in this model, we assumed very low friction vegetation at tsunamis, minimal, to make it inundation extent larger. Another studies in engineers are telling that friction should be larger, but it's still an active area of research. I just reviewed the proposal from one person who was studying the effect of the friction. And the airport here in this map, not included in this map. But in a 6-mile subdivision, we have a tsunami which is going up all the way up to the highway. The highway is here. The colors, so this green, it's about 5 feet, 5 feet of depth. The blue means about 1.5 feet of the flood, of potential flood. So, but again, so this is there are some still uncertainties about earthquake model, about elevation, because it's too far away already, about 2 miles. And this is a guidance about what can happen. So, and the next step for the community, for the emergency management, to develop the evacuation zone, hazard zone, using this map as a guide. I would suggest to delineate, my suggestion, to delineate this as a whole kind of hazard zone. So, because this map is good, but it's not for the pixel-wise comparison. So I don't want people to look on which side of the line I am. So there are only 2 pixels from my house to the line. No, it's not this way. So because 2 pixels, it's a numerical model. It's a numerical model. So we try to calibrate the numerical models and try to make them accurate as much as possible. But when we do run up, simulations of run up, sometimes we have an error of about 5 pixels in the numerical model. So here it's like 5 pixels of the run up can, on a flat area, specifically on a flat area, can make large uncertainty. So this area would be probably worrisome for me. But if we model the run up on a high slope, such as in downtown, the area of uncertainty starts to be removed. So because the slope is larger. So. These maps, which we developing as drafts, so they will be published on a map portal. So it's at tsunami.alaska.edu, and on the right you can see list of communities, and there is a tab for Cordova. Eventually, very soon, these updated maps will be published on this website. Okay. What is the next step? The next step is that we're good. So we developed inundation maps. How about the next step is developing evacuation maps, understanding how quickly people can get away from a hazard zone to the safe location. And there are 2 different types of products which are helping us. So the first product is agent-based modeling. So it's where the movie is going to be. So, but not yet. So, and then another is a least cost distant model. So in agent-based modeling, so it is tracking individual people. So tracking, so for example, it's good for understanding how to evacuate a building in case of a fire emergency. The same thing can be applied to the fish processing plant. We have, say, 500 people working in a plant, how quickly people can get their way through different nooks and crannies and different passages. And it's very scenario-based modeling stuff. So for the fish plant, we might have we understand how many people working in this location, summer versus winter, day versus night. So this is good. For tsunami, for people in the community, we don't have a very good understanding. If we do, it's great. About who is in our evacuation zone. So there could be tourists, there could be transient population, there could be people going from school kids going in and out. So the agent-based model for tsunami, not so I would say it is done. It is done. So, but we are thinking about a different model. So it's called a least cost distant model. So in the least cost distant model, so we consider as a landscape around us as basically an obstacle course. So we have buildings which we cannot go through, but we have roads and we can walk around those buildings on roads. And roads have they can be going uphill and they can going downhill. So and depending if the road is going uphill, it is slowing down the person. So if the road is going downhill, it can help the person to go quicker, but if it's going downhill really steeply, then it's again a problem. So, and we apply this least cost distant model, so how quickly people can navigate through different areas. And what is the main input into this model is actually how quickly people can walk. This is a big debate about it. Different agencies put different numbers. For example, people design the street crossings, street lights, assuming 4 feet per second. That the person crosses those streets about 4 feet per second, or about 2.5 miles an hour. But people can definitely, we can assume a much larger speed of evacuation, like 5 miles an hour, so running 6 miles an hour. But it's we have to consider all people, everyone. We have to consider different weather conditions. If it is rain, ice, it's much more challenging. If it's night, with poor visibility also. So, and in this study, we assumed about 3 feet per second. That's how quickly people, we assume, can walk. And on the right, it's a picture of Valdez right after 1964. So streets are not going to be paved. They will be paved on a hard rock. So in Cordova, in downtown, everything is really close to the bedrock. So not much going to be a problem with this liquefaction. But on a road to the airport, 1964, every bridge was destroyed because it was a big surface waves and the bridges collapsed. Roads in the soft sediment might have these fissures and the evacuation. So this soil liquefied in Palu in 2018 sidewalk. So that's why we are assuming a low speed of evacuation of 3 feet per second. So and another thing, once we assume this speed, we have to put say this assembly point. This assembly point is a green rectangle here. And colors mean here is that red color takes about 30 minutes of walking time to reach to this green rectangle. The yellow means about 15 minutes to reach this green rectangle. The green, it's about 0. People reach. And if we add one more rectangle, say at the uplift, at the uphill of this First Avenue, then this harbor people can reach this green rectangle or assembly areas much quicker. The walking time to the uphill it's about 15 minutes, 20 minutes from this state ferry. Okay, so what's next? So in 2019, I came here and we walked corridor along the first street, then to the school, and then along the Lake Avenue. We assumed it's assembly zone, or say it's away from a hazard. So, and the question was, how quickly can people reach this green area? So we did some modeling, and people can read this is the same color code. Red means 25 to 30 minutes. So everyone from the ferry terminal access and from Winshed Road and from the harbor can get to this assembly zone in less than 30 minutes. So that's before the first wave. If someone is on a New England to Canary Road right here, the walking time is more than 30 minutes. Is a 3 miles per hour walk. It means that this person has to be moving quicker than 3 miles per hour, so maybe like 5 miles per hour, just to get to this uphill on the first street. So that's what it's telling us. All right, so, and now I want to talk about harbors, boats, and vessels. What can we do to prepare them? And these are results of effects of a Japanese tsunami. So on top it is California. This top figures and the bottom left, and the lower right it's Tohoku tsunami in Japan itself. Lots of damage to infrastructure. Here you can see the oil sheen. Boats are leaking fuel, and 2011 tsunami apparently was a big spectacle in Santa Cruz Harbor. And police had a hard time to keep people away from the keep people away from a harbor. This is not the first wave. It's the second wave arriving to Santa Cruz Harbor, and people of helicopters and police cars are trying to shoo people away, and in this case, people were lucky that the tsunami happened on a low tide. So, and if that tsunami was happening on a high tide, then the wave would have flooded the trail. So, and I don't know if you have seen it, but take a look at it. So the wave comes as a bore. It is coming as a bore because of the very shallow depths of the harbor. And it's a long harbor.
Here, it comes. Oh my God. There's nothing anybody can do. Not even that. It's not right where we were standing. Yeah, we were right there. Standing right there. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm glad we were gone.
And
Oh my God.
I believe it's only a 3-foot wave.
Can you hear it? Oh my God. Okay. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, that one just broke loose.
Well, even a small wave can make a loose wave. So there was a warning sign that people should get away, so people didn't get away. The harbor needs to be closed if in case of advisory, tsunami warning. So, and California then got their heads scratched. What do we want to do? Do it again. And it was a minor tsunami, relatively minor tsunami. And then they started to prepare a maritime community about what boats should do and when they should evacuate, when, where, and how. And also talking about long-term recovery issues with the harbors. Because what is the potential damages to the harbors? The sudden water level fluctuations, like so in Santa Cruz Harbor, and basically a bore is forming. So the bore is propagating from shallow area, graphene working that propagating. But questions that cannot enter the harbor, I don't know. So probably the harbor, this harbor is located with an entrance perpendicular to the working. And it's a different shape than the Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz Harbor is very long. It's a mile-long harbor and working well. Here, Alaskan harbors are different, but still, water fluctuations can occur, and strong unpredictable currents, specifically close near to the harbor entrance. So there's a jetty here, and then water is coming in through the harbor entrance. Basically, like someone a hose in the harbor, making a whirlpool motion around. And also this current which comes to the boats and far away from, actually current which comes to the boats and it can drag boats, especially if there is attachment to the boats. And also the currents can make scouring and sedimentation in different channels. So we have very shallow channels over. When a strong current comes, I believe there will be lots of change. Some channels might get deeper, some channels get shallower. So, and I saw some reports from 64 and entrances covered by silt. Some will get deeper, predictable channels. And also, finally, environmental hazards. In a Crescent City Harbor was heavily damaged by a Japanese tsunami. Boats sank and they started to leak fuel. The question is that what people, Environmental Protection Agency didn't allow to dredge to figure out what to do with this contaminated soil, where to store it and where to transport it, because it was full of diesel fuel. So the harbor was closed for about a year now, dealing with the fuel contaminated soils from the harbor. So if I think it was a plan about to have at least some dialogue started about what to do with the fuel contaminated soils if they occur in the harbor. And it's not only for tsunami, but there could be just different accidents, boats sink, fuels get contaminated. So if an emergency official is directing evacuation of low-lying areas, then definitely there's a good chance that it's a moderate wave. And what's the moderate wave? So what's the response? So there are two different. The response depends on the tsunami type. So there are distant source tsunamis, for example, Japanese earthquake and tsunami. It takes about 6 to 7 hours to this tsunami to get to Alaska. Chilean tsunami, far away in Chile, it takes about 16 hours to get to Alaska. We have lots of time. Some people disagree that we have lots of time, but we have some time for thinking to understanding what might be the best course of action. For example, I heard of a story that it was a distant source tsunami in Japan, and in the Hawaii it was about enough time, but they didn't want to ring an alarm right away. So they ring an alarm a couple hours later, so people have more time to sleep. So they wouldn't be so groggy. So the same thing can be here. So there is an earthquake in Chile, far away in Japan, then might be giving enough more time for people to sleep. Something for emergency management to consider. And also the distant source tsunami can gives more time for boats to figure out what to do. So whether to go to the deeper ocean or go back to the safety. For near shore tsunami, what we hear, we would feel the ground shaking, the ocean shaking. Our primary sign that the tsunami is happening, earthquake is happening right next to it. For distant tsunami, so first now I'm going to talk about distant tsunami. So we hear from NOAA weather radio, from siren, from radios, that we would receive one of these products: tsunami warning, advisory, or a watch. So it's coming from a National Weather Service tsunami warning center. For different alert levels, we have a different response. For tsunami advisory, tsunami advisories are given when a tsunami wave height is less than 3 feet. So basically, in this case, we can expect strong tsunami currents in the area, but not much flooding land. Some local low-lying areas can be flooded in tsunami advisories, but no significant. But no significant land. For tsunami warning, the wave can exceed 3 feet. So in this case, in addition to strong tsunami currents, we have an expectation that the land will be flooded. So that's the docks might be overtop the pilings and other things. After receiving a warning or advisories, the boat owners they have to first determine how much time they have before the first wave comes. So remember, it's a distant source tsunami, so tsunami is hours away from the community. So, and NOAA will sending these statements about when a tsunami is arriving to a community, what the wave height is going to be. And then the boat captain can figure out if they can reach the deeper water in time. Or if not. So, but in any cases, we recommend that everyone shouldn't be on their boat. Water is much more dangerous, especially during a tsunami, than being on it. So, but some people are stubborn and they want to be on a boat. But and if they decide to be on a boat, they should first spend how much time they have for reaching the deeper water. To be prepared to be out there for 24 hours and have enough supplies and that the harbor which coming back might be closed because of the other issues. And for distant source tsunami, the safe depths, I don't like this word safe. The threshold is about 30 fathoms. So if it's 30 fathoms or deeper, then the tsunami currents will subside dramatically. If it's shallow, then 30 fathoms, so about 180 feet, then the tsunami currents might be still strong. And for Cordova, the bathymetry is really shallow. Work inlet is shallow. The front of the Cordova, Gulf of Alaska is really shallow. So, and going out to the beyond the island, going through from Work Inlet into the Narrows, it's where might be getting away from the hazards. And maximum tsunami currents for the distant source, source tsunami are mapped here. So different color codes. The yellow is from 3 to 6 knots, and orange is pink from 6 to 9 knots, and red is mostly. The currents in the Ork Inlet will go from northeast to the southwest, just perpendicular to the shore. Just going uniform up and down through the Ork Inlet. And in this is a small cove, and because the tsunami currents going straight up and down through the Ork Inlet, they will start to making a small whirlpool in this area. So that's why we have more color here. But currents, Cordova is really well protected from a distance. But we still have some small currents along the shore. And this is a distant shore tsunami, tsunami modeled on a Cascadia event. Cascadia tsunami, that's when earthquake is happening along the border of Oregon, Washington, the northern California coastline. So, and it will propagate through every coast of the Pacific, and it will get to the Ork Inlet, and the wave height here, maximum wave height is between 3 and 4 feet. And this information can be used to assess if pilings are long enough. So we can expect the potential wave height then multiplied by safety factor, add the storm surge and expected tide to see if the pilings are long enough. So here it says 6 to 8 feet. I think it's from a different presentation, so it needs to be orange from 3 to 4 feet. Here. Okay, so now let's move to the local tsunami earthquake. Well, for the local tsunami and earthquake, there should be no attempt to move a boat for local engineering. Specifically if it is in a harbor or tied to the boat, or tied to the dock. So if you're on land or tied to the dock, then leave your boat and go to the higher ground on foot as possible. So the wave is coming. So better not to check Facebook or Twitter. Just shaking is a good motivator to go up to the high ground. If you're at sea or if you're at sea or far, then don't return to port if the warning has been issued. So strong currents will be close to the shore. Turning to the shallow areas might be more damaging than staying in a deep ocean. So in this case, stay at least 100 fathoms so deep. And finally, there's a Twilight Zone, so it's in the middle. So here, if you're on water but near shore, so near shore, it's really tricky term here. Near shore depends on the vessel. If you're on a ski jet, small boat, near shore can be a mile far. For a big boat, if you're on a big boat, the near shore can be, say, 100 yards could be already far away. And in this case, and this is important because the captain has to make a decision about what is the best course of action. So whether go to the deeper ground or get people from the boat on land. And if depending on if the boat is close to the shore, it's near shore, then definitely evacuate to the higher ground. If it's far away from a shore, then go to the 100 fathom line and stay there. I want to say that this is a warning. This is a guidance, general guidance, and we are looking for input from boat captains to see how feasible it is. It is sort of in our heads. So, but we would like to have some workshops with boat captains. See if there are any, if it total jump or there's some reasonable rain. So that's why we want to have a conversation with boat captains to see what their response would be if there is a warning. So there is an advisor. So to have an understanding. So if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. So sort of like tabletop exercises. So, okay, let's continue. So if someone is on water and not near shore, then proceed perpendicular to shore is possible. So, and sail directly into the wind waves and maintain separation between vessels as much as possible. And and this is a general guidance again. So this can be modified for a community. So, for example, because every community is different, so bathymetry in every community is different. So we want to work with the community and with boat captains and harbor master and try to figure out how to make it more applicable to given specific circumstances. And And on this slide, we'd like to show tsunami currents from a local earthquake. So this again, same color code from yellow from 3 to 6, and red is more than 9. The strongest tsunami currents are close to the shore. Cordova is right here, in the shallow areas. So being in these areas would be extremely dangerous, not only because of tsunami currents, but because when the wave comes in to the shallow areas, it deepens a lot, forms a bore. This bore propagates as a single wave on shore. So this area would be needs to be avoided as much as needs to be evacuated. In Orc Inlet, in close to the city, we made this did some modeling, tsunami currents, and these currents are strongest in the Orc Inlet. But as soon as we get to the narrows, they start to diminish. They start to subside, and they can last for hours. So on the right plot, it's tsunami currents more than between 3 and 6 knots, and the middle it's a bit 6 to 9 knots. And the colors means hours, how long they can be sustained. So 6 to 9 knots currents in the Orc Inlet can be sustained up to 24 hours. So it's because of the wave action. The 6 to 9 knots can be sustained up to 12 hours, and more than 9, they will start to diminish almost nowhere except some locations. Okay, and finally, here is an animation of what might be happening to small vessels which are tied to the piers. They are shown by these dots here. The water level would be from color-coded from red to blue. The time is right here. So 30 minutes and the wave starts to arrive. When the comes, floods, and the boats are gone. The wave is going in this direction. Go on for hours. So tsunamis and the wave activities, it's definitely something can affect harbors, makes unpredictable impacts. So, boat captains who are in the open ocean, they should keep a contact with emergency management, harbor authority, because harbors might not be safe to come back. So they might have to go to a different harbor, to a nearby city. For example, in a Crescent City, boats from during a tsunami went out. They started to run low on fuel and water. Was a storm was coming. They just didn't have enough supplies, and the Navy had to rescue, give them, provide food on the open ocean. They eventually went to the Humboldt Bay Harbor, about 100 miles down. So, and also that during after the tsunami, there will be changes to the markers, likely changes to the markers, and navigable channels might be full of sediment. New channels might be opening up, and because of this subsidence and uplift, as in 1964, the areas became shallower by 10 feet. So it's the damage exposure to new reefs. And this is what we do in school. So drop, cover, and hold. So if there is an earthquake and strong ground shaking for 30 seconds or later or longer, now it's not 30, now it's 20 seconds. So then drop, cover, and hold on. And then after that time, after 20 seconds or 30 seconds, we have people in the evacuation zones, they start thinking that a tsunami might be coming. They don't have to wait until the shaking stops, because every time this shaking can continue for minutes. And specifically if there is a local landslides, and the slide can come in much quicker than 30 minutes. And so people can start thinking about evacuation about 20 or 30 seconds. Have to do it when they feel safe to do so. Because now we have all these ceiling tiles which might be falling on us. So definitely drop, cover, and hold for 30 seconds. Start thinking when the shaking just starts to getting smaller and smaller, and to putting some on top of our heads and then going out. So, but definitely when it is safe to do. So tsunamis will visit every coastline in the Pacific, and definitely will come to Alaska. Sooner or later, magnitude 8 earthquake can happen anytime in Alaska. So just a matter of time it comes to us. And we want to be prepared. So we want to be prepared, and we want to be how evacuation zones, and sirens works. That we have a bag, supplies, gas, so in case. So, and there's something that people can do for mitigation in a harbor. So I'm not going to read it out. So Heather has a list. Find the list on the website, and share the list with everyone. So there are different types of mitigation. So in real time and during the emergency, so remove boats from a harbor. Maybe it's possible, maybe it's not. Disconnect fuel lines, and the real-time mitigation effort. But also there is a permanent mitigation measure, such as modify the harbor, improve the wave breaker, replace the pilings which are faky, check those boat ties. Boat ties to see if they're not rusty or not. So there are different types of things possible. So I think I'm done. So, if you have any questions? Yes. I would say, as a community, you should probably ask other agencies about these practices. See if they have an answer. So if they mitigate against those, or they don't. Because as we know, we try to collaborate with different agencies, but sometimes hard to knock them. to knock to somebody's door because everyone has different priorities. Right. So that right. So estimating tsunami currents that's important, and the potential wave height is also important for designing for designing infrastructure, different capabilities. You see how high the pilings needs to be, how strong the splits needs to be, so on. So, and I would recommend that you talk to the agency, and the agency find the design the infrastructure specifically for the harbor currents. I don't know. Yeah, so I don't think there is any state agency. Nothing. So this is a document, as I mentioned earlier. So it's in a flux of development. So following this California earthquakes. So and this being implemented in some places, but not so much. So it's not like strong forward footing. There is no workflow or pipeline. Implement that, implement that. So it's more sort of like ad hoc list about what can be applied. So and then community can contact this agency who is designing the harbor and see we can work to implement it. Yeah, I don't think it was integrated. Yes. Yeah, I can mean higher water. I so I know it is on mean high water. So that's a elevation map. So how it is related to low water, don't remember. So I believe in this area, the difference between high water and low water is around 0.6, 12 feet. So that's the converting topography, usually given in our GPS in an ellipsoid. Yes, ellipsoid. Water is really a challenge. Different on NOAA agency. We take into account when we model tsunami, take into account that some parts of the land drop and some parts of the ocean bottom rise. To model. This scenarios when the land is rising 8 over, not worst case scenario. Because everything is rising, water is. We are considering the worst case scenarios where the land bound doesn't change. It's on a hinge line, so it's in the middle between going up and going down, so neutral. But we do satisfy the geological considerations. Copper River Delta, the land goes up. That's what 9 out of 10 times all these previous geological discoveries, the land went up. This slide? Yeah, so this is a slide. So this is it's what happened in 1964. Blue means it's where the land went down, and pink it's where the land went. So in Copper River Delta it's 18, it's 0.18. So when we model 1964, we make an assumption that here the land drops and here the land rises. So heat modeling of 1964 in Cordova. When we did that, we assumed that Cordova popped up. So. But in our worst case scenarios, Cordova is let's hear it. So it is experiencing. It's like experiencing some uplift, but not as drastic as it was in 1964. And in this case, Tahoko tsunami, Cordova is shown by this arrow, and it is neutral. So the subsidence is green. So that's not green, it's blue. So this is where the land goes down, uplift in red. So it's we moved this earthquake south. So and we have this in neutral displacement in Cordova. So and can it happen? It can happen, but likelihood of this scenario is lower than I would say this scenario, because there is some subsidence in Cordova Delta, but we cannot. It can happen 1 out of 10 times. So when this type of a scenario, when land goes up in Cordova, can happen 9. This scenario, it's more probable than that scenario, but we cannot assign it. Really, we don't know about earthquake. What's the likelihood of that? 100 years. Cordova goes primarily, typically, Cordova goes up during the earthquake. Then in between earthquakes, it is Copper River Delta. So it goes up, vegetation grows on top, marsh forms, a nice horizon. Then it is sinking. We have the sediment coming from the mountains. The whole thing is just sinking down. Then another tsunami comes in. Marsh, tidal marshes popping up. Station forms up, and the whole thing is sinking between earthquakes. This marsh is getting buried by the silt. You have this layer. And this part of the town, it is stable, so it goes up. So, but it goes up also during the earthquake. But in between the earthquakes, yeah, it is sinking. But sinking takes time. So quickly, it takes hundreds of years. Any questions? Right. Yeah. So what's happening? That here there are two different scenarios. So this on the left, it is a scenario which makes largest inundation close to the airport. So that's the wave forms right in front of the airport, and it floods this low-lying areas. So this scenario, but and this scenario is actually the uplift of this the Earth, sea bottom, is happening in the Prince William Sound, in the middle of the Prince William Sound. This is a big uplift, and we are connected from the Prince William Sound by this deep channel, the narrows. Water can just follow this deep channel from inside sound and get into. So we have two mechanisms. For the airport, it's from the Gulf of Alaska, waves rushing on the coast, but they would not get to work inlet much, so they will be crushed by this shallow area. But for the downtown, the earthquake inside of the Prince William Sound, inside of this, can get through the, around. Did I answer? It is, everything is published through Alaska Division of Geological and Geophysical Survey. So what we do, we publish foundation maps, upload, telling how deep, right behind it. It is telling how deep the water might be at the different parts of the town, but also for a few specific locations, around like 25 around the city, major intersections of the road. We produce records what the tsunami dynamics, tsunami height is going to be flooding, or is it not flooding? What's the wave height, what's the tsunami height is going to be, what's the velocity of the tsunami. So I can find it. And those are locations where we provide time histories for tsunami. So, for example, in number 1 is in the middle of the harbor, 3 is on parking lot next to the harbor. Or that, so here's the number 1, and we have sea level. So the sea level, what the sea level is going to be at point number 1. What would be the velocity? Point number 1. So this information engineers can take into account for designing buildings. Yes. And we provide them for all scenarios which I consider. And it's basically foundation for designing. Yeah, so the report will be, we're looking for comments about maps, so which are behind. So there are 6 map sheets. We can adjust extent to those map sheets and adjust transparency, collect some comments, go back to publishing the results. So I think we expect this update at least by August. And the next step would be developing the evacuation version. So next step is basically we'll tell residents, tourists, the community about where the assembly areas, zones are, what's the evacuation zone. It will be a trifold brochure. It will be work as a header for people, workshop, a community workshop, and this is a time where community input is the most important. We can design evacuation zone. We will design the evacuation zone. We'll put the contact information that you would like to put. Also other information as well. So suitable for the product design. So we consider ourselves as basically a tool. So help you to have a brochure. And DHS will have funding to print them copies. So